Hi everyone! As part of the process of continuing to fix inconsistencies and improve the profiles of the different research units in the Scholar repository, the goal of this video is to resolve inconsistencies. We have received some messages asking to clarify what the inconsistencies mean and how authors and managers can resolve these inconsistencies. Inconsistencies will be notified via email. The Scholar platform identifies inconsistencies and sends these warnings to resolve inconsistencies, but we could also identify our inconsistencies from the menu in our photo. We could click on Tasks and go directly to the inconsistencies. In my case, as I am a platform manager, I have access to all inconsistencies. Our goal is to reduce the number of inconsistencies as much as possible to a reasonable number. In the menu on the left side, we can also identify duplicates, documents that the repository identifies as duplicates. In this case, our interest is focused on inconsistencies. So how do we resolve these inconsistencies, and what are they? The repository has identified different types of documents. If we click on the menu that appears in our photo, we could identify in Create Publication the different types of documents, different types of publication. These are articles, books, master thesis, PhD thesis, book parts, conferences, reports, and patents. This does not mean that we cannot insert other types of documents. Each of these types of files and these types of publications has associated fields that are mandatory. These mandatory fields are defined by the OpenAIRE guidelines. This means that an inconsistency will be understood as a lack or a shortage of information in a field that is identified as mandatory. Therefore, we can go back, and now that we have defined what inconsistencies mean, we could move on to fix an inconsistency. I'm going to look for this article here. I've actually identified the file. The issue of the files is very important for Scholar to be able to achieve its goal of open access. It is necessary to have files, to include files from conferences, articles, master thesis, PhD thesis, because otherwise we end up losing the point of the repository, which is open access, self-archiving. For this, we already have other platforms to simply have the records, such as Scopus and ORCID profiles, Scientia Vitae. Therefore, Scholar ends up being a space to make files available in open access and make your publications more visible. So let's move on to fix this inconsistency. Scholar identifies that the inconsistency field is the Fields of Science and Technology field, and we click here on Review. What does review mean? When I click on Review here, I will have access to fixing the inconsistency. If I do not complete the process of reviewing the inconsistency, it will say that I am reviewing this inconsistency. The author, Nuno Manuel Mendes Maia, will receive a notification, and the system will then tell the authors of what changed after reviewing the inconsistency when this inconsistency is resolved. Let's click Review. We can see a red asterisk here. These red asterisks mean that the fields that are mandatory are this: the type of publication, the issued date, the FOS field, and the publication language. We will continue to improve this record. To confirm all the metadata, it is better to have the publication file, and later we can upload this file in the record. What we can do is work with Scholar on one side and the file on the other. Let's confirm the title is correct. We recommend capitalizing only the first letter of the title, proper nouns, and formulas. In the issue date, we can also identify the year here. I found the complete file published online, but I don't know which version it is. Although the field is not mandatory, each author should identify the version being submitted. Then we have the publisher. In this case, the publisher is TransTech Publications. We have the link to the publisher's version, so let's insert this information here. I would now insert the title of the volume, the issue. This article doesn't have an issue, only a volume number. I can also fill in the digital object identifier. The abstract is also very important to give more information and allow more people to identify this article. The abstract is a field by which the repository can identify the keywords when a user is entering keywords into the search engine. Now, we could fill in, if we have keywords, which we normally do, we could fill them in the field subjects. In this case, the file doesn't recognize the letters to copy the keywords to Scholar, so we write them down manually. Scholar identifies the commas to separate keywords. Therefore, sometimes we have to copy them into a Word document to help better separate them. After entering this, we see that the FOSS field is mandatory. There are some people who also have doubts regarding the FOSS field. In the library's webpage, we can find all the documentation related to Scholar, including this file. To make it much clearer, the FOSS domain has been identified by a group of national experts on science and technology indicators, approved in May 2016. It is the review of these classification fields of science and technology. This field allows us to identify the classification of the scientific domain and generate statistics on which areas are producing the most and which areas are being researched more. And we have all these fields that will appear here available. In this case is the FOSS field. We recommend that the authors identify their FOSS field in their file. We can see here that this specific article was published in Key Engineering Materials. Therefore, we can infer that this article is related to materials engineering, and we select this FOSS field. We continue moving forward. If we have any financing entities here, we could fill them in here. In my case, I don't know because I'm not the author of the publication. Here's another important thing. This first time, what we identify is the author as he appears on our title page. The second time, we identify the author with the respective IST profile, if they have one. Here we have Nuno Mendes, and here we see the profile associated with him. This allows records to be grouped together and associated with different profiles that exist in Scholar. Let's try to see if there's a profile for Rui Sampaio. In this case, we have someone here. We can check this author's profile to make sure it's the right person. We see a link between him and Nuno Maia again in the co-authorship, so it is very likely that he is the same person. If I wasn't sure, if too many identical profiles showed up, it would be better to leave this field empty. Also, if this person was not part of Instituto Superior Técnico and did not have a profile within the repository, only his name would be associated, but no profile would be identified. Let's continue. Now let's add the file. I have this file here. I'll simply drag and place the file. This step is very important because it allows me to identify what type of file it is, what the format is. I choose full text, and it is in open access. When I place a file in open access, a new field will appear up here that is marked with an asterisk, and this allows me to later identify in the search fields which records are in open access. I'll fill it in here in the same way, open access. At this point, the record I'm reviewing would be fixed. It would just have to submit, go up, and it's done. If I click here to go back to the inconsistencies, I would then lose this record. I'm going to copy the title so I don't lose it and check if the title now no longer appears in the inconsistencies. And we see that this inconsistency is solved. I go to the main page, enter the title of the article. Here it appears, and the record has saved all the metadata. Let's get to work.